Hey guys, it's Jenny. Welcome back to the Bookworms Buddy. It is time for my July wrap up. Okay guys, so it's time for my wrap up. I'm not going to be doing a tackle my TBR for this week because I will just make mention for this last week what books the week before what I read. So let's just get started on this. I ended up reading 12 books and 13 books, but one of those was a DNF. So let's just get started on this. First book that I read was on my Kindle, and that was Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. So in this story, we are following Misha and Ryan, and they are pen pals. They got set up from their teacher, and they agreed to not look each other up on the internet or through Facebook or any of that stuff. They just wanted to keep it, simple, pen pals, friends, someone I could depend on. And they did that. They depended on each other for everything, and then something happens and Misha decides he wants to know who Ryan is. And so he looks her up on Facebook and puts a face to her name, which is Ryan. And he knows who she is, but she does not know who he is. And you can probably pretty much follow that the rest of the way. There is a huge twist in this book at the end, which I really loved. I ended up rating that book 4 stars. The next one I read was The Silver Swan by Amo Jones. This is from the Elite Kings Club series, and I really did not get it. I did not get the story at all. You've got Madison, who gets sent away to this prep school, and in this prep school you got this group of boys. They're the Elite Kings Club, and somehow she attracts their attention, and they are just cruel to her, vulgar, it was just too much for me. It was a very dark story, but I think it just went a little too far for me, and I really did not enjoy it at all. I rated that 2 stars. The next book that I read was The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult. This one I really enjoyed. You got this girl, Sage, who is still kind of recovering from her mom's death, and she deals with that by working in this bakery, and she's there all the time. She works overnight. She prepares all the food for the next day. And she also helps deal with this loss by the support group that she's a part of, and that is where she meets Joseph. He's an older gentleman, and they strike up this friendship, and he tells her a bit about himself in story form, and he asks a request of Sage that she needs to come to terms with and decide whether or not she is going to grant his request. And that's pretty much the story. I really, really, really love the story. It's very fluid. Their friendship is pretty genuine. The other thing I didn't like is the way the book ended. I thought I wanted it to end a different way, and I can't, of course, tell you how I wanted that to end, but it's a really good story, and it was different than what I thought it was going to be. So that was good. I liked that. But I ended up rating this 4 stars. The next book that I picked up was Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. You guys know, if you've watched my channel long enough, that I really do enjoy Karen Slaughter. I enjoyed the Will Trent series. That's probably my favorite series by her. And then she's also got the Grant County series. Those are both mystery series. In this one, you've got Andrea, and then Laura is her mother, and they're pretty close. I mean, her mom is pretty annoying sometimes to her, and little things kind of trigger thoughts of Andrea. And this happens when they end up going to the mall, to this little diner, and they're sitting there talking and they're eating, and then this devastating tragedy occurs, and Andrea sees a whole new side of her mother that she never even knew existed, and now she's trying to get down to the bottom of it, trying to figure out who her mom really is. And that's pretty much the story. I really liked it, but if you read Karen Slaughter, you know that she is pretty in-depth. So if you've not read her, keep that in mind. It just takes a little bit to get to the point sometimes, from point A to point B, but it's definitely worth the read. Right now I'm watching the series on Netflix. I think I'm on the 4th episode now, I think. But yeah, it's a really good story. I ended up rating that 4 stars. Okay, the next book that I read on my Kindle was Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. In this book, you've got 3 friends. You've got Angela, Geo, and Kaiser, I think his name is. And they grew up together. They were the best of buddies. And then one day, Angela disappears, and nobody knows what happens to her. So years and years later, Kaiser is now a police detective, and he ends up finding the remains of Angela near to where Geo lives. And so he's got to figure out what Geo's involvement is, crack the case, that kind of thing. It was a really good story. I liked the fluidity of the writing, and I really did enjoy the characters. So anyway, I ended up rating that one 4 stars. The next book that I read was The Executioner. You guys know that I have Chris Carter's whole series, except for the last book, which has not been released yet. So I'm just picking one of these up. The whole series is sitting there, so I'm just taking one every once in a while and reading it. This is the Robert Hunter thriller series. For me, it's more mystery than thriller, I guess. But this one, you've got a serial killer who is killing people by means of their worst nightmare. Whatever scares us them the worst is the way that he goes and attacks them and kills them. Really good. His writing is very fluid and meticulous. The detective in here is very meticulous. Every single bit of evidence that's found is important in some way, so it's making you use your brain also, trying to figure out why this is important. And like I said before when I was talking about this book on my Tackle My TBR, it kind of has the vibes of like Lincoln Rhyme, the series that Jeffrey Deaver writes, because everything is important. So I really like that aspect of this book. This was fantastic. I ended up rating this one 5 stars. Okay, so this is the book that I DNF'd, and I think I know I mentioned this before in another video. The book is After by Anna Todd, and my youngest daughter had read this series when she was a senior in high school, and she approached me a few weeks back and said, "Hey Mom, you should try this book or this series out and let me know what you think." And guys, I really did try it. I got like 25% into the story and I just could not do it anymore. This story follows Tessa and Hardin, and it's one of those new adult romances where he is just the biggest douchebag of the century and she's tripping all over herself to be by him. And that's pretty much the story. Like, make it difficult for the guy. Don't just fall into him and say, yeah, do what you want, you know, treat me like crap and then I'll still be there for you, kind of thing. And it just, that trope drives me crazy, and I find more and more new adult romances that use that same trope, and I just, it's like pushing me off of romance, seriously. And I've run into a lot of it lately, but just not as bad as this book. So, like I said, I DNF'd it. I probably will not even try to go back to it and continue on the series. I couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. So, the next book that I read was The Girl in the Mirror, and this book is by Rose Carlyle. This was on my TBR shelf, and I really enjoyed it. In this book, you've got Iris and Summer, who are identical twins, but one mirrors the other, and they grew up with money, and they grew up on the ocean, and yachts and boats and all that stuff, and so their father ends up divorcing their mom and remarries somebody else, and so there's another family involved, and Dad dies, and they read his will, and in his will he said, whichever one produces the first heir inherits the $100 million that he is worth. And that was the first thing. Like, this family dynamic is just craziness. Just crazy. I can't even imagine any father or mother, for that matter, doing that to their children. And now there's a step family involved. I mean, come on, who does that? So the family dynamic is crazy. Anyway, to continue on, so you've got Summer, who says, I'm just going to fall in love normally. I'm not going to let this money hang over my head. And that's what she did. I think her husband's name was Adam, and he is widowed, and he's got his own child. And they get together, and she doesn't tell him anything about the money until after they're married. And then you got Iris, who has Noah, and she's just like, hey, we get married, have a kid, we get this $100 million. Of course, that marriage did not succeed. So anyway, it comes down to the point of Iris and Summer end up on the yacht that Summer had bought, which was their childhood yacht. She was going to travel with her husband to Africa. They're going to do a year-long cruise on the yacht. Well, his son gets sick, so it ends up being Iris and Summer on the yacht. And one day Summer gets up while they're out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Iris wakes up, and there is no Summer on the yacht anywhere. It's just Iris. So now you can imagine all these thoughts going through her mind. And that's all I'm going to tell you. You guys can figure out pretty much the rest. But the twins, the twists in this book were something else. Like, amazing. And it really changed my mind about this, because I got to like page 70, 80, and it's not a very big book. And it was a little slow, so I'm thinking, oh, it seems like it's going to be just like a 3-star read. But let me tell you, the very last twist in this story just, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So it did push it up to a 4-star. It wasn't quite enough to give it a 5-star rating, but this was really, really good. So if you guys want to read something that you're not going to really expect, I guess, I don't know, but this was a really good one. 4 stars. Okay, the next book that I read was Bully by Penelope Douglas. Finally, I get a new adult book where our girl character actually stands up for herself. So you've got Tate. She's a tough girl, and she doesn't take shit from anybody. And then you got Jared. Now, Jared and Tate used to be friends long ago. And things happen, and they just he turns into a bully over Tate. And the story pretty much goes on from there, and she does not take any of his crap. And I'm like, hallelujah, thank you, Miss Douglas. Oh, thank you so much for that. I ended up rating that book 4 stars. Okay, so the next one we got that I read is The Last Time I Lied. This is by Riley Sager. I don't know how I love thrillers so much. This is the first Riley Sager book that I've read. Ridiculous, right? But anyway, in this book, you've got these girls that are at a camp, and you've got Vivian, Natalie, and Allison, and Emma is the newcomer. She's late. They don't know where to put her. They put her in with these 3 girls who are old. I think they're 16, and Emma's 13. Vivian kind of takes her under her wing and tries to show her the ropes, saying she's like, I can be your big sister, all that good stuff. Well, one night, the 3 girls are leaving the cabin, and Emma sees them, and Vivian says, you're too young for this. And they leave. The girls never come back. Then years later, like 15 years later or so, the owner of the camp decides she wants to call on Emma to see if she wants to come back, because Emma is a painter. And in the time afterwards, all she would do is paint these 3 girls that disappeared, and then paint over them so you could barely see them in the painting. And she's got this gallery, and she is doing okay. She's selling her prints and what have you. Emma does agree to come, but only to figure out what happened with these 3 girls 15 years ago. So that's all I'm going to tell you. She gets there and she's trying to figure it out. I'm not going to go any further with that, but this was fantastic. I absolutely loved this story. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Okay, the next book that I read was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I read this book back in 2016. I gotta say, I didn't like it as much as I liked it in 2016. I did rate it 4 stars. It was still very fluid. I still loved the characters. It was kind of just reading it the first time for me again. And in this book, you got Alina and her friend Mal, who end up being orphans after the border wars, I think I want to say it is. And now their people are dealing with the fold, is what it's called. It's like this body of water, and if you try to cross it to get to the other side, then these creatures come and just kill everybody on the ship. And so they're going across there, and the creatures do come, and Mal gets severely injured, and Alina acts and discovers she's got this dormant power. And so the Grisha decide that she is in fact Grisha, and they take her, and she's going to train and all that good stuff. And that's pretty much the story. I'm sure everybody knows about Shadow and Bone anyway. Like I said, I rated it 4 stars. I am going to continue with the series. Like Siege and Storm will be coming up next on one of my one of the next couple TBR shelf videos that I do. So yes, so 4 stars for that one. Okay, the next book that I read was Heroes. So this was also part of Shark Week, but you guys will see a video for that. You probably already see it by the time you see this one. This was for something that I wouldn't normally read. This is a graphic novel, and years ago I picked this up at a used bookstore for my grandson Avery, who is now a preteen. But I'm glad that I never gave it to him. It's pretty dark. This covers the superheroes from the show. And it was just okay. I mean, there was really nothing that was that appealing to me. But I read this in about an hour and a half, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I rated that 2 stars. Okay, the next book that I read was Before She Knew Him by Peter Swanson. In this book, you got this couple, Hannah and Lloyd. This new couple moves in, and they go over there for dinner, and she notices something in his office that makes her very suspicious of the neighbor. And that's pretty much the story, and you're going to follow through this, how Henrietta she's trying to do her own sleuthing and that kind of stuff. It was pretty fluid. And the story was okay, but just okay. I gave it 3 stars. It didn't blow me away for a thriller. I think I wanted a little bit more to it. There wasn't a whole lot of drama, I don't feel like. So, yeah. And then the last book that I read was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This book was also for the Sharkathon for Shark Week. I absolutely love this book, you guys, but I gotta tell you, this is tied into Caravel. So if you don't have any plans to read Caravel, that's fine. But if you're gonna read it, then read that before you pick this book up. The second book to this is coming out in September, I believe, and I'm really looking forward to that. I have it on pre-order. But in this book, you got Evangeline, and she asks for a favor from the Prince of Hearts. And if you ask a favor of the Prince of Hearts, you have to give him 3 kisses whenever he asks for them. But his kisses are deadly. So you could take that into thought however you want. But I absolutely loved it. I just can't hardly get over her imagery that she uses in her book. She's just amazing. And I am really, really looking forward to the second book to this duo. I think it's going to be a duology. I'm not for sure. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. I rated this book 5 stars. So that is what I read, guys. I was trying to get this one read. This is Delirium by Lauren Oliver. This was also one that I chose for Shark Week, which goes through today because it's the 31st. But I'm struggling with this one, you guys. I've had this book forever on my shelf, and I don't know. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to plug away at it. I'm only at about page 78, and I've been on this book. This would be day 2, and I'm only on page 78. But over the weekend, I did have my youngest daughter and my grandkids, and we all got together for dinner and all that stuff. So my weekend was really busy, but I'm struggling. Like I said, I'm just really struggling. We'll see what happens. I don't want to DNF another book this year because I've already got 2 DNFs for the year, but we'll see. Hopefully something happens where it just really wants me to read it. But that is my wrap up for July. Like I said, it was 13 books. One of those was a DNF. I also have another book I've been reading on my Kindle, and that is Corrupt by Penelope Douglas, but I'm not yet finished with that one. So, yeah, that is what I ended up with for the month of July, and I know I won't get these other ones finished, but that's okay. I did okay. So let me know if you guys read any of these books that I showed you today, or you can let me know what you read in your July, and I'll come over and watch your video if you do videos or what have you. But thanks, guys, for staying tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.